I know Sid has got a couple more questions, but I wanted to hear a little bit more about the story behind Bound to Crash. I know we aired it on one of the shows because you had written to us, but for our audience just getting to know you now across America, could you just tell us that story again in your own words?
Yes, definitely. Bound to Crash was the time in my life that I had been partying with a bunch of my friends, and one of our friends was partying a little too much, and instead of us being that person's friend, telling her to not drive home because she was too wasted or what have you, and taking her keys from her, we just decided to just let her do her thing, and she ended up dying that night.
I'm so sorry.
And it was so sad because, when you think of a friend, friends should definitely be the ones to look after each other. When something seems like it's going to go bad, just go ahead and yank the keys from those people, or even though the repercussions of telling them the truth may, end up in an argument, you go ahead and just say it anyway, because you at least giving them a chance to think about what they're about to do. And I regret till today that I never mentioned anything to stop them from getting in the car and trying to attempt to drive home or whatever. And unfortunately, she took 3 other people with her that were in the car, and they all died. And I just thought of myself that how good of a friend are you if you can't stand up and just tell your friend that, hey, this is not a smart thing to do. That's where Bound to Crash came from.
Thank you for telling us that story. I think that's something that all the listeners will very much connect with. We've all had something tragic happen in our life, and that you've been able to communicate it through your music and spread the message that friends should look after each other is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
On that very subject, Dennis, most artists actually draw upon experiences on their lives or in their lives which makes them write songs, for example. What about musical influences? You talked about in the early days when you were making that decision between being a footballer or whether you were going to go into music. What were the musical influences in your life at that time that also encouraged you to step in that direction?
Oh, man, Zeppelin.
Nice one.
Yeah, Zeppelin. At that time, I still am, but at that time I was very much into Zeppelin, and I couldn't get enough of it. And that kind of introduced me into the whole rock thing. And then thereafter, I started to listen to the Oasis. And I actually it was kind of interesting because I actually was getting involved into listening to Kate Bush. I don't know if you guys know Kate Bush much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I was getting into Kate Bush as well, which
I'd like to get into Kate Bush myself, Venice.
Sit.
Venice, we've talked about some great artists and musicians of the past. When you look at the music industry now, is there anybody that you look up to in the same kind of way?
There's a lot of great bands out there. If I had to choose, I still am very much inspired by U2, and they're not really new, so to speak, but they still create really amazing new music. And being a band of that magnitude and still being able to produce such great music in this modern day, I'm baffled by it. I'm always trying to understand and trying to study what it is that they seem to capture all the time, every time. The other band or artist that I would say would be Radiohead. Yeah,
it's funny that you mentioned these 2 particular bands, U2 and Radiohead. U2 being not just a great band, but also very political, and then Radiohead coming out with kind of more of an indie movement and offering their album for download at whatever price you wanted to set. And as I'm moving into an issue that I've seen recently on your blog that you posted on June 13th, or maybe about a particular company stealing money from indie artists. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it's like to be indie from your perspective, living in LA? What are the challenges? What are the benefits?
The challenges is definitely that you have more avenue to be able to sell your music, but the unfortunate thing is that certain companies, which I won't mention, but if you go to my blog, you'll know which company that is. Certain companies, they will say they'll give you 60% of the downloads, but what what happens is that unless you've got the funds to check their books, what happens is that they end up giving you 60 cents here, and then like they take $1.20, you know, but without reporting
that's skimming to the ultimate degree.
It's definitely skimming. And what happened was that I had friends that had said, I got this song from that company, and I was like, well, how did you get that song? Because the song wasn't released yet, and the only way that you would have been able to get that song was through that company. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is a major company that most indie artists uses, and they showed there was no report from the accounting of that being sold. And I'm like, I wonder how many people are getting skimmed.
Absolutely.
And it just, in fact, I should mention the company that you should, all these indie artists should really be considering to go to is a company called myrecordlabel.net. I know the owner personally, and there's no reason why any independent artist who wants to sell the MP3s shouldn't go to that website. It gives you 100% of your downloads, and basically all they ask is that you just promote their website. And the way that they pay you is through PayPal, which is directly into your account. So I don't understand why there's not that many indie artists haven't taken advantage of that. Maybe they're skeptical because it's a very young company, but I would recommend any indie artist trying to sell their MP3s to forget about Snowcat, forget about iTunes, go to myrecordlabel.net. It's the best thing for any indie artist to do because you're getting 100% of your MP3s.
Venice, let's just come up to date for a while. Let's talk about your latest album. Your first album was Which Way Is Out, and your latest one is Suffocate. Have you learnt anything from the first album to this album, and is it very much different, or are you keeping a certain style about it all?
It's very different. Suffocate is actually an acoustic album, and I had gotten several emails from fans wanting an acoustic album, and Suffocate is that album. So they're not the same at all, because Which Way Is Out is more produced and more, I took the approach of just the sky was the limit with Which Way Is Out. But this one, I made it raw, very raw, and it's just me and the acoustic guitar or piano. I'm actually playing piano now too as well.
Was that an experience you enjoyed, Venice, as opposed to being in a production studio and overproducing, rather, just to go in there and just do it acoustically?
Yeah, I actually I really appreciate the acoustic sound, and it was a great experience. It definitely didn't take as long to have to finish, but and I think from now on I'll definitely always have some kind of acoustic album. My next album now that I'm actually working on right now is definitely going to be different from Which Way Is Out, extremely different. So I'm hoping that the fans appreciate the new direction, because it is going to be very different, and I'll send it over to Fame Games when it gets done.
Excellent.